Hi, it's Nero here from Investment Rise, and as I record this in March, hasn't the property market changed, especially from late last year? I mean, back in October of 2020, when I came out and said the property boom is starting right now, yes, this was back in October 2020, I got criticized unbelievably. I mean, I got all sorts of comments, such as like from Y Nish, who says, everyone seems like they are crying so hard to rise the property market. It's a dying industry. Or Ben, who said, what goes up must come down sooner or later. Australian property market in done, people. TikTok. Oh, and mind you, these were just the polite comments. But as I record this right now, as I said, in March, things have totally changed, right? I mean, we've just had the fastest rate of price growth since 2003. And there's actually no sign of property prices slowing down in Brisbane or Sydney. I mean, we're constantly seeing headlines like this in Sydney, which says, why the current Sydney housing boom could be unprecedented. And this was back just in February, mind you, end of February. The article goes on to say, Sydney's housing market is booming again due to a perfect storm of low interest rates, pent-up buyer demand, and a shortage of available housing. It has seen prices skyrocket in recent months, and the major banks have forecast significant rises to occur over the year. Commonwealth Bank this week released projections showing Sydney prices could jump by 20% over the next 2 years. Westpac earlier forecast of about 7.5% over 2021. And then in Brisbane, we're seeing headlines like this. Queensland house prices through the roof as interstate migration at 20-year high. And now with all these headlines and the fact that people are seeing prices rise, I'm now getting asked a different question. And the question is this. Did I miss out on the property boom? Is it too late to enter the market? Are prices about to fall right now? Is now the right time to enter? And so if that's you, if you're wondering if you've missed out on the property boom or if you should be entering right now, today I'm going to be offering you some brand new proof that shows without doubt that property price rises, especially in Sydney, Brisbane and many large regional areas, are here to stay. In an earlier episode, I spoke about, in fact, some of the reasons driving the property boom being low interest rates, easier access to credit, and the shortage of supply. But I also said that a lot of this that's happening right now is in the absence of migration. And sure, in Australia, especially in Sydney and Brisbane, the COVID situation is under control when we're talking about our stronger property markets. But around the world, no, there are still a lot of issues. And so a lot of people say, look, well, migration is not going to happen anytime soon. But I beg to differ. Check out some of this data. Here's an article from March of this year, which says, super rich significant investment visa applicants are eyeing wealthy suburbs. The article then goes on to say, tweaks to Australia's blue ribbon migration program have added fuel to surging demand for our priciest property. It comes as the head of an Asia-centric real estate portal has confirmed super rich future migrants are using family or friends already in Australia to hunt for high-end homes. Last year, the Home Affairs Department moved to simplify its business innovation and investment program, prioritizing uber-rich, significant investor applicants who must invest $5 million in Australia to move here. So, what do you think that's going to do to our prices, especially at the top end, when the super rich or the uber rich, as the article refers to, migrants with that kind of money, they're being fast-tracked. Their applications to move here are being fast-tracked. Now, of course, you might think, well, now that's going to only apply to, I guess, the trophy suburbs, the suburbs like, Toorak in Melbourne, or maybe, Mossman, for example, in Sydney. And it's not going to affect the median range suburbs. Well, think again. Check this out. Now, this article is from SBS Punjabi, and it goes on to say, This is the fastest way to get permanent residency in Australia. The Global Talent Independent GTI program is a streamlined visa pathway aimed at attracting the world's best and brightest migrants and high income earners at the top of their field to work and live in Australia permanently. But then the article goes on to talk about something very, very specific, and this is the key point that you need to understand. This is what the article goes on to say. It says, to be eligible, the applicants must demonstrate the potential to earn a salary at or above the income threshold of $153,600 each year and have their application supported by a nominator of national reputation in the same field. So that means that people who have the capacity to earn a solid six-figure income, well, they're being fast-tracked as well. And so they're also going to be competing for the same property that everyone is right now. Well, what do you think that's going to do to property prices? Now, you might think, well, surely the RBA is aware of this and they're going to do something about it, or the government's going to do something about this. But consider this, the RBA and the government are aware of this. I mean, they're aware that housing affordability is already declining across the nation. And as this article says, it's on the cusp of being obliterated. In fact, in New South Wales right now, on average, it's taking 44.6% of a family's income in order to afford their mortgage payments. That's New South Wales wide, mind you. I expect it's much higher in Sydney. And as you can see from this graph, the other states are not far behind. So of course you might think that then the RBA will be concerned, and that's leading to articles like this, which says Australia's booming property market could push up interest rates. And the article then goes on to say Australia's property market is officially booming, with prices now rising at the fastest rate in 17 years. But it could cause some big problems. But the key word here is could. Now if you look at the headline, it says Australian property market could push up interest rates. And as far as I'm concerned, that's just opinion, that's just rhetoric. It's not actually what I would call almost responsible journalism, responsible reporting, because it's not actually based on data. It's someone's opinion, because if you actually then go and look at what the RBA has to say, they say something very, very different. In fact, if you look at the latest announcement from when they said that they were going to keep the interest rate in Marches at the current low levels of 0.1%. The key part of what they had to say was this. The RBA is fairly unconcerned about the pickup in the housing market, as they see the housing mechanisms as one of the ways they are supporting the economy. The governor has said before that we've had a 4-year pause in national housing prices. So they're comfortable if they rise even further from here. So that's right, the RBA is actually not concerned about property prices rising, even though affordability is on the decline for the average Australian. And in fact, they're comfortable with prices rising even further. And they have even come out and said that they are well aware that in the current environment, property prices could rise on average about 30% over the coming 2 to 3 years. And part of their comfort around property prices rising, or rather their lack of concern, is because the RBA has totally changed its focus. You see, in the past, the Reserve Bank of Australia was focused on inflation and keeping inflation low. And so they would manage interest rates based on what the inflation target was. But since the COVID-19 pandemic landed on our shores, the RBA has completely changed their focus. They've realized now that they don't need to focus totally on inflation. They can keep inflation in check while focusing on jobs. As far as the RBA is concerned, their focus is on jobs, and the creation of jobs. And they see that this high level of activity in the property market as a key factor helping increase jobs. So what's the takeaway here? It's simply this. Property price rises are here to stay. Yes, we've already got an undersupply in the housing market, but I believe it's only going to get worse once immigration begins. And as you've seen, the government is changing regulations to fast track migrants who either have more money to invest immediately into the country to the tune of $5 million or more, or they're fast tracking migrants who have the ability to earn a higher income. They're going to be fighting for the same properties, which are going to increase demand and make the supply shortages even worse. Secondly, the government is unconcerned about property prices rising and housing affordability decreasing at the moment, or at least they're not concerned enough to do anything about it because they are totally aware that they need more migration into this country to increase tax revenue, to start making a dent into the massive deficit, which I've spoken about before. And then thirdly, the Reserve Bank of Australia, or the RBA, is also totally unconcerned about property prices rising, and are in fact expecting property prices to rise, as I said, by 30% over the next 3 years. So yes, prices have risen a fair bit already, but what's amazing is at how much they are yet to rise. And if you're someone who can afford to get an investment property, if you can afford to jump in right now, what the data shows is that in many areas in the house market, there is some significant capital gain yet to be achieved. And the sooner you're able to jump in the right area after doing your research, the more the potential capital gain you can make. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you found this video valuable and you're thinking you might like my help to help you find an investment property, then head on over to nerocall.com to discover our unique 5-step process that's helped my private client group purchase now well over $66.2 million worth of property. And then if you like what you see, you can book in for a half-hour phone consult with me personally. Either way, thanks again for watching.